Hello, this is Raziel Cohen from ndftraining.com, and we have a lot to talk about in this video. So what this video is a lot of things combined into one because there was a lot of different products that came about into making this build come together. Just to go through a very rough overview really quick, I have a slide from Brownells, which was their milled slide. I have the Strike Industries fluted barrel. I have Trijicon suppressor-height sights. I have the Holosun 509T, and I have the riser from Reptilia. Now, there's a lot of reasons why all these parts had to come together to be able to make this a working build. So to back up a little bit, I recently purchased the 508T that I got from opticsforce.com, and I really like the optic. Later on down the line, I had an issue where we were in very heavy rain during a class and water got behind the emitter, which ended up having some kind of spotting inside the reticle. The reticle was still very perfectly usable. It was just annoying that that was able to happen. I sent it back to Holosun and they replaced it with no issue. And obviously that seemed like, in my opinion, it was a fluke because a lot of people are using the 508T with great success. And it doesn't seem like that's something that was common to be able to happen. So I'm going to continue testing with the 508T to see if that issue were to be able to come up again, in which case I don't think it would be a viable option. If you're a person who is just a regular concealed carry holder, I think the 508T is a great option because it's very minimalistic, it's very small, it's very usable, and it's very much in competition with the Trijicon RMR. After that happened though, I was curious to see the 509T, which is the closed emitter optic from Holosun, which is more in competition to the Aimpoint Acro in its design, where it is a closed emitter on both sides and otherwise all the same features from the 508T. So when I got the optic, I saw that there was going to be a different mounting system, which shouldn't be a problem. So when it arrived, I was very confused. I have this slide from Brownells, but I also have another milled slide that I got on my OEM Glock that was from Zaffiri Precision. So I had that milled specifically for the Trijicon RMR footprint. Now, what I didn't realize is that industry standard for Holosun and for the Trijicon RMR is based off a very, very specific footprint. If you have the Glock MOS, which is the modular optic mounting system or optic system, whatever it is, the mount that comes with the 509T will fit onto that perfectly, and you shouldn't have any issues with mounting. That's as straightforward as it gets. Side note to that, if you're going to get the 509T and you want to mount it to your MOS system, I'd very highly recommend you get the adapter from C&H Precision and don't use the one that comes from Holosun specifically, just because from what I'm told, that's going to be a much more durable platform than the one that comes from Holosun. Again, if you're a recreational shooter and don't shoot your gun that often, it shouldn't be a problem at all. But if you're looking to use it for duty use, it might be worth to spend a little bit extra money to get that adapter to make sure that you have a very strong, very viable system for defensive use. So what happened is that the screw system from other aftermarket companies such as ZEV and Zaffiri Precision and Shadow Systems is not the same footprint as the standard RMR for like the Glock MOS. So I was trying to find an option to be able to use the 509 on my system, but be able to still use the same mounting options that it came with. I could not find anything anywhere on the market to be able to use to be able to make it mount to my Glock, which was obviously very disappointing because I was trying to figure out what I was able to do for an aftermarket slide to be able to put it together. So I reached out to Zaffiri Precision. I was like, could you guys help me out? Like, any info would be able to be great. So they linked me to Reptilia, which I've made videos on them in the past. They make some awesome mounting systems and different options for primarily your rifles. One of the things they have is called the ROF riser. What it is primarily is meant to be used if you have an LPVO as an adapter to be able to either raise the height of your Trijicon RMR as your backup, or be able to use it as a mount in general. And Zaffiri said that if you want to be able to do this, it's going to be a little bit of work, and you're able to make it work though. What it is that you take that riser plate that I got from Reptilia, and you kind of open up the screw holes a little bit. That was able to mount onto the holes of the aftermarket slide, and then on top of that you put the mounting option that came from Holosun, and then on top of that is where you could put the optic. So it's definitely not ideal because it brings everything up a little bit higher. At the same time, it seems like the market is getting much more used to having higher rise optics. The only downside that I'm seeing so far is that now my suppressor height sights, which are obviously taller than standard height sights, are still a little bit too short to be able to use as backups for your optic. So right now this is more on like a competition style build, just because I don't want to use it on a defensive gun without the ability to have backup sights. Although the likeliness of needing to use them might be low, I would feel much more comfortable knowing that I do have backup sights at my disposal if need be. So right now it's a little bit too high. So as a side note, if you know of another option to be able to mount this while it's still being a little bit lower, or if you know of sights that are higher than standard suppressor height sights, I'd be curious to check those out. So let me know if you can. But that's kind of where the system is holding right now, where I have a riser from Reptilia Core that has on top of that the mounting option that came from Holosun, and then on top of that I have the actual optic. So it's working fine and everything is working the way it's supposed to be working, but I kind of wish there was an aftermarket option that kind of combines all this together and makes one simple unit that would then keep the system more low profile. So again, if you have that in mind, if you have that option in mind, I'd really be curious if you could let me know. So otherwise, I want to specifically give a shout out to Zaffiri Precision. They helped me also make sure that I got the right screw placement, because since the riser and the placement on top of that is going to be taller, they wanted to make sure that I had the right screws that make sure it fits all the way into the slide itself, so I get proper connection between the two, as well as Reptilia, which sent me out their riser, the ROF riser, just as an experimental thing to see if it would be able to work. So I really appreciate both those companies helping me out, as well as also Optics Force for sending me the optic to be able to do the testing with. And I wouldn't have been able to figure out this resolution for people who have aftermarket slides without those companies. So as of right now, just as a recap, if you want to get a Holosun 509T and you do not have the MOS system, what you're going to need, I'll leave links below to both companies. If it's on YouTube, I'll send direct links. If it's on Instagram, I'll attach those brands below. You need the ROF riser, which brings up the height of the optic a little bit, but then it makes the adapter screws obtainable for you to be able to use. Then you'd use the mounting plate that comes with the 509T, and then you could put the 509T on top of that. If you have a standard Glock MOS, you should just be able to take the standard mount that comes with the Holosun 509 and be able to put it. I really hope that there is going to be a company out there that will come out with a more straightforward option for people who use aftermarket slides, because aftermarket slides are very, very popular right now. And it's a lot more than standard Glock MOS is, because people like to upgrade and modify their firearms. So I'm really hoping that that comes out as an option soon. But until then, this is the only way from what I've seen is a viable option to be able to use your 509T on the Glock that is not an MOS system. On top of that, if you have if you want to just use the 509T uses the actual standard RMR mounting system, so you wouldn't need to do any of this. You could just use the 509T and just be fine with it. But again, this is all I have for now. If you have any info on any of this that could be able to be a help to us or anyone else in the community that wants to use a 509 with an aftermarket slide, I'd really be curious to hear that in the comment section below. This is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com. Thank you for watching.